Alcaraz explodes at his team against Moute. I'm not going to run for the next one, I'm tired of going to the net, it's been 55 times. We're going to have fun, Carlos Alcaraz predicted when he learned that he would face the left-handed Frenchman Corentin Moute in the third round of the Australian Open. It was his first match against this opponent, but he knows his tricks well, positive when his racket produces magic, negative when his more unruly side comes out with umpires, players or even spectators. The Frenchman chose to emphasize his showman side with fantasy tennis, with impossible shots, improvising on the fly far from the general standard. A touch-based tennis that Alcaraz loves, surely the player with the most ingenuity and technical resources at the moment, with the added ability to also dictate play with his high ball speed and powerful hitting, something Corentin Moute lacks. Alcaraz and Moute had fun and offered 2 hours of pure spectacle to tennis fans. The world number one won 6-2, 6-4 and 6-1. Running quite a lot because drop shots and lobs followed one another. He is usually the one who resorts most to this art, but Moute, due to his conditions and vocation, surpassed him in this regard, an exception on the circuit. Carlos Alcaraz summed it up very well before leaving the center court, in his interview with former champion and now American commentator Jim Courier. At the end of the third set I told my team I'm not going to run for the next drop shot. I was tired of going to the net. I looked at the scoreboard and saw that I had been at the net 55 times, the Spaniard explained with a smile, provoking general laughter. It wasn't an easy match, although we both enjoyed ourselves. I came to think we were in a drop shot competition, which he definitely won, said a satisfied Alcaraz after reaching the round of 16, where he will face the American Tommy Paul next Sunday. Paul eliminated Alejandro Davidovich, who retired due to physical problems after losing the first 2 sets 6-1. Carlos is always a huge challenge. Carlos Alcaraz's next opponent gives in to him. Tommy Paul, the American tennis player and frequent rival of Carlitos, has praised the world number one after learning he will face him in the round of 16. You can't make many mistakes. Carlos Alcaraz is already in the round of 16 of the Australian Open. The Mercian tennis player gave no chance to his rival, the Frenchman Corentin Moute, and wrapped up the match in 3 sets, 6-2, 6-4, 6-1. Carlitos produced multiple flashes of his great game in a match that he had already warned would be fun to watch in the previous press conference. However, the Frenchman's game tested the world number one's patience due to the many drop shots that made him run more than he would have liked. I was tired of going to the net. I looked at the screen and thought, my goodness, I've been at the net like 55 times. It was complicated. I thought we were in a drop shot competition and he definitely won, Alcaraz confessed after the third round match. Now, with 3 victories accumulated in the first Grand Slam of the year, Carlos will face a frequent rival, Tommy Paul. The American has played Alcaraz up to 6 times, with a positive record for the Spaniard of 6 wins to 1. In addition, the world number 20 has stressed that he will not make changes to his game to face the player from El Palmar. Not really. We set a game plan that seemed like the right one against him. You can't make many mistakes. For me, the game plan is about execution, honestly, the American concluded. For his part, Carlitos praised Paul and assured that he knows what I have to do against him. A great player. I'll have to play my best tennis to beat him. I'm ready to suffer against him, because I know there will be moments when he takes the initiative at important times, Alcaraz said to the Australian Open microphones. Alcaraz explodes at the Australian Open. From night to day. From the debut on Sunday to starting again on Wednesday. An unusual beginning for a star of the level of Carlos Alcaraz in a Grand Slam, but one that is in line with the new times, with tournaments gaining more weekend days. An economic goldmine, due to ticket sales and television rights. The Spaniard had to deal with the new playing conditions, with a livelier ball because of the sun and the 30 degrees Celsius heat at 2 in the afternoon at Melbourne Park. These are the conditions he likes the most, but at the sporting level of the Mercian, every slight sensation matters. Details are fundamental. And 3 days after his debut, he needed to adapt to a more slowed-down start to play. That is what a title contender needs, especially at the start of the season. Only his second official match of the year. It was a pot of gold for Carlos Alcaraz. The suffering was worth it. Yes, he struggled for more than an hour, but he exploded at just the right moment. The moment of the greats. At the important point, the belief and quality of the world number one, champion of 6 Grand Slam titles, who wants to make history at 22 by winning the Australian Open, becoming the youngest player to hold all 4 majors in his trophy cabinet. The leader of the rankings had to react to the bold challenge posed by world number 102, the veteran German Yannick Hanfmann, who played one of the best matches of his career. With his determination, he forced Alcaraz to explode, to finally free himself and win 7-6, 7-4, 6-3 and 6-2 in 2H44. Through to the third round, on Friday against the Frenchman Corentin Moute, who eliminated the American Michael Jung 3-6, 6-1, 6-3, 2-0 before retirement. With tighter tennis, because the 78 minutes of the opening set demanded it. Alcaraz found himself behind, 1-3, against an inspired Hanfmann. Aggressive, hitting hard with serve and forehand. Flat shots, making the ball fly. The German gave everything, the Mercian always responded, quickly recovering the break deficit, 3-3, knowing how to suffer in adversity, in a bout of unexpected difficulty. At 3-4 in the tiebreak, at the peak of Hanfmann's form, Alcaraz's differential gene appeared, a special talent in moments of risk. He strung together 4 consecutive points, shifted up a gear and took the set in 78 minutes. As long as it was competitive. Throw in a smile, his coach Samuel Lopez asked him when he secured the break in the second set to make it 3-1. Alcaraz was serious, focused because it was hard for him to take the initiative. He laughed for real when a spectator shouted an unusual cheer, uniting 2 brilliant generations of Spanish tennis. "Come on Carlos Nadal." Alcaraz calmed down as he saw his tennis rise, too much for Hanfmann, who had to be treated on his left side before starting the third set. The German lost for the third time to the Mercian, whom he had already lost to when Alcaraz was only 16, but enjoyed having been a difficult opponent. Outstanding in this test for Carlos Alcaraz. A straight sets win, without getting into really serious trouble, spending just the right amount of time on court for physical sharpness without punishing the body. Gaining match rhythm worth its weight in gold for the next rounds. The player from El Palmar came out stronger. The test became very serious, and he made it his own. What was not seen on the fourth day in Melbourne, Alcaraz's anger, insults from Davidovich, and the incredible downpour in Australia. The fourth day of the Australian Open left even more memorable moments. Coincidentally, Spanish players were the protagonists of the day, showing their emotions on court and leaving all kinds of episodes. Both Carlos Alcaraz and Alejandro Davidovich won their matches and are into the third round. They even had time to avoid a universal downpour in Melbourne. Davidovich versus the crowd, idiot. The Malaga-born player spent around 4 hours on court, and that leaves room for a lot, especially if the crowd is not on your side, or at least neutral. First, shouts from a boy in the stands unsettled Foki, who did not hesitate to respond to chants in favor of his opponent, the American Riley Opelka. USA, USA. The fan shouted. What are you saying about USA, idiot? Davidovich snapped, addressing his bench. A somewhat comical episode, with Davidovich angry and Opelka giving a thumbs up to his supporter and thanks. At that moment, the Spaniard was comfortably leading the match, but everything got complicated from the third set on. In the fifth, he managed to get the job done and shout to the Melbourne sky. Considerable anger from Alcaraz. The world number 1 won again in the second round without dropping a set, but the tension was high. The Spaniard, who had a tough start against a combative Hanfmann, got very angry after a point and began shouting at himself and toward his coach, who smiled at the situation. It was not his best day, but he earned a valuable victory. Midway through the second set, with the score and outlook already very favorable for Alcaraz, one spectator dared to shout just before the Mercian's serve, forcing him to stop and even laugh after hearing the Carlos Nadal yelled by the person in question. Anger and laughter during a match that lasted nearly 3 hours. Spanish emotions ran high. Zverev's look of disbelief at the downpour. Alexander Zverev was dominating the third set after 2 tight ones and calmly returned to court after a break. Checking his racket and the string tension, suddenly drops began to fall. In seconds, the drops turned into a torrent of water, as if from a tap. The German, incredulous, and Moule, his opponent, ran for cover. All matches had to be stopped for a few minutes. Despite the main courts having roofs, the rain was so sudden that there was no time to react. So far, the weather has been behaving well in an area where a storm can appear at any moment. Hopefully it stays that way in the coming days. All the protagonists, Alcaraz, Davidovich, and Zverev, are through to the next round and continue their journey at the Australian Open. Now they will have a day off before returning to action next Friday. Sunday could be very special in Spain if their players win, as they would meet in the round of 16. Carlos Alcaraz's message to the families of the victims of the Adamuse train accident: I'm far away, but I'm with them. After winning his second match at the Australian Open, the first Grand Slam of the year and the only one he has yet to win in his career, Carlos Alcaraz made a touching gesture toward the victims of the railway accident in Adamuse. Last Sunday, January 18, at 7:40 p.m., an Aereo train derailed near this town, invading the adjacent track. Despite the driver making an emergency call to Atocha warning of the dangerous situation, 20 seconds later an Alvia train arrived on the invaded track, colliding head-on with the rear carriages of the Irio. The tragic news, reported by major international media outlets, reached Australia as well, and Alcaraz, after defeating Hanfmann 7-6-4, 6-3 and 6-2 to advance confidently in Melbourne, sent a message to all those affected in Spain with his traditional victory signature on the glass of one of the cameras filming the match. "Much strength with what is happening in Spain," he wrote, intending to convey his sympathy. "When we found out, it was a very hard blow for us." Later, in the post-match press conference, he added, "We are here in Australia, on the other side of the world, but that doesn't mean we are unaware or don't follow the news coming out of Spain. Obviously, when we found out, it was a very hard blow for us because of everything that is happening. I want to give a lot of support and encouragement to all the families and all those people who have lost a loved one or a family member in that tragic accident. And at least let them know that even though we are far away, we are still aware of everything that is happening in Spain," he concluded just a few hours ago. Meanwhile, in Spain, workers have found another body among the remains of the Alvia train, the one that remained to be fully inspected, raising the death toll to 43 so far. This means the number of missing persons now matches the number of bodies recovered from the disaster site. To carry out this discovery, the Guardia Civil relied on the crucial help of 2 K9 dogs from its Central Canine Unit, UCC. Junco and Enzo, specialized in finding biological remains, were key in recovering this last passenger. For his part, this is the first major tournament Alcaraz has played after terminating the contract with his longtime coach, Juan Carlos Ferrero. When they discussed the former player's working conditions, they could not reach an agreement and definitively ended their professional relationship. In his place, on the bench, we have seen Samuel Lopez Jarino, already part of his team, as the Mercians' main coach. Alcaraz assesses his new serve after advancing in Australia. The first Grand Slam of the year offers Alcaraz the chance to complete the 4 majors and become the youngest player in history to do so. In addition, this first tournament of the year brings a new service motion that the Mercian has worked on during preseason to improve that stroke. So far, the feelings have been very positive and the serve is working well. About this change and his sensations, Carlos spoke, noting that the change has been positive. Alcaraz is already into the 3rd round of the first Australian Open in which he starts as the top seed. Walton and Hanfmann have not taken a set from the Mercian in these first 2 rounds, and he has only dropped serve twice. Now he will face the always unpredictable Moute, who will try to make things difficult for a Carlos who starts as the clear favorite.